Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for How to Align IT with Business Outcomes, the first in our 2018 Business Roadmap webinar series. I'm Rob Betzel, CEO of Infinity Network Solutions. I want to welcome you to a hopefully beneficial session that we'll be putting on today. Before we begin, I want to give you a couple housekeeping items. Everyone on our audio bridges is on mute. If you've called into our local audio bridge, you may find the audio slightly out of sync from the video. Please know that in the recording that we will send out afterwards to everyone, the audio and the video will be in sync. Everyone's free to submit questions or issues via the chat throughout the presentation. We'll work to answer as many questions as we can at the end. So with that, let's get started. So the agenda today will look like this. What is outcome-based planning? How to align IT with outcomes, business outcomes that is, and how do we leverage outcome-based planning both for you and here at Infinity. We'll then cover Q&A, and at the end, we'll provide you some next steps that you can take if you're interested in furthering this conversation or others with us. So let's start. What is outcome-based planning? It's a systematic way of planning where the desired outcome or goal is defined first, and then the steps needed to achieve that desired outcome or goal are mapped out. So you can measure for success and not just completion. So by that, what we're talking about is beginning with the end in mind. It's a very simple Covey concept where when we begin, we want to understand where we want to be and then work backwards, systematically understanding each step from where we want to be to where we are, and setting definable goals and measurables for each one of those steps. So as we move forward, we can understand, does that step move us closer to the end planned state? So an example of that is if you think about a bird who's feeding its fledglings, it's not how many worms they feed the young, but how well they fly when they take off. So if you think about it in this process, if we want one chick to fly in 6 weeks, and to achieve that, we need to feed them 6 worms a day, and it takes 10 minutes to find each worm, then the mother is going to have to look for 60 minutes a day to find the 6 worms needed over the 6-week period. And so success can be measured both in the task of looking for the worms, the success in finding them, the daily feeding, and then ultimately that bird gives that fledgling that first nice kick out of the nest. And so that is thinking about the end in mind versus just the task of doing something. So when we think about outcomes, we need to think about what kind of outcomes we could be dealing with. Some cases we have new, something we want to do new, something we want to change, something that's an incremental improvement, a risk reduction, or the worst one of all, one that's being forced upon us that we didn't plan for. And so in a new outcome, we might be seeking to stand up a new line of business. So again, think about a business-based outcome, something new. We're going to take on a new area of service, a new market, a new set of team members. And so that end result is new to us, and we need to figure out that state at the end that we're trying to achieve. Change outcomes would be looking to take something and saying, we do this, and instead we want to do that in our business. So a change of something current has a different parameter of work steps. Incremental improvements are probably the ones we do in real time and don't even realize it. That's where we know what we're getting as an outcome, but it's not quite where we want it. And so we're trying to change the outcome slightly. Risk reduction, I think that's one that business always should talk about. That's sort of, we already have this, but we see a parallel track of issues and things that are going to be holding up our ability to achieve safely the outcome, and we need to work to reduce the risk in an already in place process. Forced are those things that get placed upon us. In those cases, we're generally in a hurry, and that a lot of times is what actually slows us down. We actually want to set ourselves up to have, even in a forced outcome state, a plan step by step from today to that forced outcome, even if it's in near real time. So when you think about IT, it's funny. Most people will tell you that IT is focused on end user support, security, backups, cloud virtualization, patching, and management. So they think about IT as a set of tasks. Their IT focus is task-based. They are achieving a very specific known work set with no real clarity about what that outcome is and is attempting to support. And so IT, when asked, what do? They'll tell you, we answer the phone. We fix problems. We install technology. We patch and manage. We make sure the backup's working. Because that's what they've been told. IT for years has been told that's what their job is. When in reality, those are things they do that support other outcomes. And so when you ask a non-IT person, what do you want IT focused on? Surveys will say 70% of people want them mitigating risk, improving customer, client, and employee experiences, managing costs, and boosting operational efficiency. So non-IT people are actually looking for IT to focus on business outcomes. So clearly there's a disconnect between what external business people and executives are asking for and the internal IT structural purpose for the business. And so the real complexity is in aligning the business outcome to the IT work. Now that doesn't change ultimately the work that IT does. IT will always be focused on fixing computers, maintaining systems, helping end users, ensuring things are backed up, applying for the newest, latest, and greatest technology, but they need to understand where those items align with what the business's focus and outcomes are. So to do that, you've got to give clear direction. Too often, IT is tasked with go get us 10 new computers and install them for these 10 people. Or they've got end user complaints that say, we have slow computers, go get 10 new computers. But there's not a clear understanding of how that asked task is directed to a business outcome. And I'll give an example like this. I was once told that a major retail brand purchased $3 million in tablets. They were asked, well, what to the IT vendor, why would they purchase? And it was, well, because that's what they told us they wanted. And so they went to the IT department and they said, well, we were told to buy the tablets to install at our stores. Well, who were you told by? Well, marketing asked us to do it. Come to find out, marketing had actually gone out and told IT to purchase this and had contracted directly with another vendor via what they refer to as shadow IT to build software and install wireless to support the tablets, to the end that they had discovered that when an online transaction was represented to a buyer in the store, 70% of the time they purchased the item in the store. And so they were linking online experience for end user transactional support with presence-based in-store transactions. IT had no idea what they were doing and why they were doing it. They were just executing a tactical task they were delivered and told to do. If included, they may have, one, had a better outcome, a faster outcome, at least a better connection to the business outcome, or possibly provided for even a better input to the experience. But because IT was relegated to a task-based involvement, they never understood where the business is trying to go. So that's where we start. How do we get IT involved? You've got to have them in the conversation. Too often in all of our businesses, whether the IT department is in-house, the IT person is in-house, whether it's external, they are not part of the conversations that are being had in the boardrooms, in the conference rooms, and in the offices where business decisions are being made, because the belief is IT can't contribute there. But the reality is today, IT is so much more than just speeds and feeds and computers. Most IT professionals have come up with or have built out business side skills because that's what the market's demanding. But then when they get inside the business, they're not being leveraged in many cases that way. So we start with the idea that when we're having a conversation about business change, about outcomes, about where we want to be, the vision, the mission, the strategy of the company, the marketing plan, the one-year revenue goals, IT should be in those rooms just like all the other department areas. It can be difficult in a lot of businesses because the IT person is someone who has not only an IT responsibility, but other responsibilities, and are also not in that room at the same time. And so the challenge is, how do we get IT there? But in getting IT there and including them in the conversation, we ultimately are setting them up to be able to understand where we're going, contribute to that conversation, and ultimately align their focus and purpose with those plans versus just tactically executing on the asks of the company. Now, another item we have to be careful with is, what's the change worth? And so in business planning and outcome-based planning, once you define the outcome, the new state, you have to define the value of that. And this is where we find that many businesses know where they want to go, but really haven't defined the value of it, the worth of that new state, because that worth is the defining point that you then are going to prescribe investment to that change. And so in that case, what I mean is, if a change that you want to have outcome is worth $1, then you clearly can't spend more than $1 or it's not worth it. And in many cases, you need to spend less than $1 to make it worth it. And so you need to define that as part of the outcome. What is the value of this change? What is the productivity gain? What is the market penetration? What is the additional revenue? And in understanding that, it's going to allow you to prescribe what you need to do and how much you need to spend to achieve that. And again, that's where IT is a lot of times lost. They're told, go out and make our network faster. Go make our computers better. And when asked to make something better, they go out and prescribe the highest and best and most efficient without the imperative of what the value is. What are we trying to achieve as an outcome? What's it worth? And then when they present that to business wonders why IT is asking for $1 million for a $10 outcome. It's because we haven't prescribed not just a budget, but the value of the outcome. Many people prescribe IT budgets in absence of understanding the need and the requirement based on the outcomes. And so we may ask for an outcome that has a value set very low, but a very high cost to achieve. So IT needs to be part of that conversation to say, hey, if you want to open a new office in XYZ, there's an entire build-out cost to get that office up and running IT-wise that may make the opening of that office impractical. Later, we'll talk about the idea of how we align cost, speed, and value of the service together to get the best outcome. But again, starting with including them in the conversation as far back as mission, vision, and values, making sure they have the connection there, then we get to worth of the actual outcome. We want to talk them through that item second. So then you got to build out what we'll take. And too often we prescribe that as go do some stuff. Now this slide is fuzzy and it's that way on purpose, so please, I apologize, but wanted to illustrate the point that starting with the end in mind, you want to work backwards through all the steps and paths and input points to the plan from current state to final state so that you can determine midterm measurables, individual costs, and potentially even branch points. And so in a lot of planning, you may have a variable that says, we need to go find out what services are available to this new office. And that will then dictate what we can do there. And that will then dictate what those costs are. And so if you can't wait to have all the pieces worked out into absolute of a plan, you'll have a branch point in the plan that says, go review this based on X, then make decision Y. And so you want to lay those plans out. And again, that's a session time where business and strategy of IT are sitting together talking about what will this take step by step. Now, IT is good at making plans in the broad sense, but many IT aren't good at making these detailed plans that line up with things like construction and line up with timelines and deadlines and governmental regulation and service provider steps. That's where sitting down and applying the business and the IT together allow you to say, okay, so when we get here, what will that look like? Set those measuring points. Is this successful? Do we need to make a change? And that plan needs to be documented out in a Gantt chart, on a piece of paper, in some recordable form that you can review and have a cycle of meetings throughout the process. Some processes are done so quickly, you have one meeting, you have one step, you measure an outcome. Some processes can take days, weeks, months, and even years, and you want to have that consistent cadence of measurement, both in points along the way and interim points based on mitigating risk and controlling the value to cost ratios. So again, IT is really good at building the plan, but we've got to apply that logic and have them be part of that business conversation. So I talked about the evaluation and improvement. So too often we think in binary ones and zeros, success and failure. Many plans have many variances of success, much like when you have, well, it's going to cost me this to build something, but I'm going to budget 120% of that because there's always overruns. So it's the same kind of thing. You want to be able to evaluate and improve. And so the measurement of success along the way, where are we to the outcome, is important, especially when the project has a long time horizon. And you create those measuring points to say, are we in a good place, a bad place, average, poor, and what's gotten us there, and then what changes can we make to improve or mitigate the current state or keep the current state going to the next step to the ultimate goal. And so that is part of that ongoing process. So we have to not be afraid of evaluation. And again, the point of evaluation isn't to prescribe critique. It isn't to prescribe fault. It's to say we agreed on an outcome based on a process. If we're not on track as we expected, what do we need to do to get there? And again, different kind of thinking with IT. You're looking to have them be part of a business conversation, a business process. Historically, it's just let me know when the 10 computers are installed. So to sum this part of it up, we need to include IT in the discussions and plans and direction. We need to be clear when we do that, we're defining those business outcomes in a way that you can articulate them and understand them, but also so that IT can understand them and contribute. We need to work to define that value of those outcomes. We need to understand what the value of the work is, because again, IT can spend $1 or spend $1 million. We have to help define that. We have to define the processes and states needed to achieve the outcome. So what are the steps and states and the process we're going to do to get to that outcome? You need to map that out. Too often we get in a hurry. We have the get started's better than sitting and planning, but there's a, smooth is slow and smooth is fast. We have to be successful by being smooth. It's more speed, less haste. We have to implement a plan. So once we've gotten agreed upon, we have to go ahead and implement it. We can't be committed to breaking the plan up and stopping halfway unless there's a true failure in the plan, because you have to start, implement, measure. And measurement should be empirical as much as we can. We want to have clarity of, by this date, we will have X things done, not a feeling of around or about, or we should be X% done. We need to be at a state, well, if it's 50% done, what does that actually mean? Because in some cases, 50% to one person is half the computers. 50% to someone else is, well, it's 20% of the computers, but we got all the infrastructure in place for it. So there are all these different measuring states. We need to be very clear on how we're going to measure and speak to those measurements. And then we got to work to adjust. Best laid plans of mice and men. There are going to be needs to adjust plans. There will be bumps along the way. There will be changes that are thrown at us by other people who have other things thrown at them, whether it be your vendor from an external perspective that can't deliver product, service provider who cannot deliver the service because of a misunderstanding to that new state. We might have a business need that gets in the way of the project that causes delays. The department that we need to move needs another 3 weeks because at this point they're in their busy season, their silly season, and making that change won't be good until a future date. So we need to make those adjustments, and then we need to go back and continue to implement and measure. So again, it's about having a process where IT is included from the beginning to the end, and IT is given an opportunity both to understand and contribute to the value of the outcomes. So when Infinity Network Solutions looks at how do we do outcome-based planning, we have what we refer to as our proven process. It's a 4-step proven process that we start with in every single one of these engagements. And whether we articulate it out loud or it's internal, we always begin with assess. We want to sit down and understand the need, both the business need and the technology need. So we have an assessment, the desired outcomes, the budgets. So we are gathering the assessment of current state, desired change, and all the measuring points along the way. Then we sit down and design that plan. We sit down and make a plan that takes into case business, budget, outcomes, measurables. And whether that plan is a very short plan or a very elaborate plan, we want to sit down and discuss the plan and say, okay, is this plan well done? So in our design phase, That may be internal to both our senior consultants and our engineering team collaborating together around the technical outcome, the senior consultants and the clients collaborating on the value of that plan, technical outcomes, speeds and feeds to the business, and then setting up to say, yes, that is what we want to achieve, and that is what we can afford to invest to get that outcome. And then we move to deployment, and that is where you have clear project management, where you're taking the plan and applying those timelines and investment milestones, and then managing that so that we get things done efficiently, but also with the maximum accuracy and least disruption. So the deployment may actually be the longest phase of any of the project steps along the way. Our final step is going to be support. Now, in our world, we believe that anything we assess, design, and deploy, we should be there to support it. That's part of our mantra around our managed services. And so ultimately, we're going to look to support that. And so in the assess and design and deploy, we want to make the system supportable. We want to make sure it's capable of being supported well, and that it's not just something that is done, it's successful, and that it can continue to be maintained at the highest level for the period of time that it needs to be in place before we return to the very first step again. So while this is written as a 1, 2, 3, 4, I would tell you 4 then becomes 1 every day of the week in our world. We go back to assess, design, deploy, and support, though in some cases we can do these much faster because of our internal knowledge of our clients and our partners. In some cases we're starting from scratch. Assess, design may be a pretty lengthy process. Deploy may be a long process or short. Support is the state we stand in until we go back to assess. So that's our first way of taking business outcome-based planning and applying it to IT logic. And we're using that with staff who understand both IT and business. Our senior consultants generally come out of CIO level roles, business level roles, where they understand both the technical nuts and bolts, but also the business communication. And their role is to make that investment in understanding that overlay so that our engineers can then focus on the technology, but only to the extent that we say this is what we're trying to achieve as a business outcome. Because again, most technologists, especially here with us, have a business background or slant in what they've done. So I made this allusion earlier. There's always the question of lowest cost, quickest turnaround, and highest quality. And much like anything else, you can generally only pick 2. Sometimes you can find the sweet spot in between all 3, but you've got to make clear what's most important. Are we trying to get a high quality, which is going to probably drive a slower turnaround and a higher cost? Are we trying to do it fast and we're willing to give up a little bit of the quality, or we're willing to give up a little bit of the cost to get it done faster? Or do we have a really tight budget where we need to then think creatively and maybe give up a little bit of the, yes, this may be a project we're going to do today, and instead of giving a 10-year timeline of return, we're only going to get 5, and we're going to have to come back to it again. And it may take us a little bit longer to get there because we've got a pressing need that needs a cost control more than a time control. But ultimately, where you're driving is that understanding of basically what are the 3 levers we're working against? And each of those are really a business lever. Those aren't technology levers. Given to a technology's device, we will always find the best solution that delivers the best outcome. And cost is not going to be the driving factor. And a lot of times, quite frankly, speed won't be either. And so that's where we've got to have that nice conversation, starting with those early business conversations that IT's not many times in. That's where the CIO function, as we call it, the virtual CIO function, VCIO function, really invests itself not only in the time point where there's a project to be done, but in a cyclical cycle that I'll talk about in a minute. So that's how it brings us to the quarterly planning. And so we think of most of our clients, which are going to be referred to as small business clients, they're going to be ones that don't need someone sitting there every single day worrying with them about the business side, but there's got to be a cycle of that. And so we apply a quarterly business planning cycle where we're working in 1 month and another month to manage the IT. We're working on the tactical day-to-day. We're looking to implement. We're looking to understand the day-to-day piece. But then we want to stop the cycle and in the quarterly moment have that conversation that says, where are we? Where have we come from? What have we changed? What have we improved? And what do we need to go forward with? And so that's the planning cadence that you go from do to review and plan, do, improve, if that's what you're doing, plan again. And you're going to do that on a 3-quarter planning cycle. And then you're going to stop wherever your annualization is, whether it's in January, March, June, July, or December. You want to stop and spend a little more time really looking at that IT concept process. How do we create the next, right? We don't want to spend every day looking at the next shiny object, right? Too often IT wants to go get the next shiny thing. In our world, we want to be an operations team that supports the business outcome day to day, quarter to quarter. And then we want to stop and spend time in an annualized basis where we say, what's the next long-term objective? Where are we going in 3 to 5 years as an organization for our clients? And then map out strategies with the new things that can improve over a longer cycle of time. IT is seen a lot of times as a cost that, well, we made a decision in our annual planning, and in July we told IT to go do something that we found out there was this big cost associated with. This is the moment we are stopping and spending that time to say, let's talk about plans and costs and understanding and who's involved and how we're going to get there, so we can then go back to our daily march. That is, that 20-mile march we have to do every single day. When you look at Good to Great and the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, is the conversation of how do we get up every day and move 20 miles forward, because you can't take over a 1,000-mile journey all at one time. And so again, we want to execute, plan, review, improve, do it again, and then we ultimately want to stop and spend that time annually. And again, our virtual CIOs, our senior consultants, as they're internally called, they're the ones that are helping our clients do that. And they do that at a high level across a large number of clients, which means we're able to take really good, high-value assets that a lot of clients would not be able to afford to have on their internal team and apply from the outside to our clients. While some of the internal metrics may be managed by an internal person or team, we can provide that piece. We also will engage at the level where there is high-level business strategy already in place and engage our VCIOs to provide the internal understanding for us so that we can then go execute. And so Infinity's got the flexibility of providing the whole of the sum or pieces of the sum based on where each one of our clients is. The quarterly planning cycle may be a bit much for some of our smaller clients, and we will find times that those are broken down from heavy planning quarters to every 6 months with a quarterly check-in by phone to set that aside. So for our smaller clients that go, oh goodness, this is more than I need, this is our prescribed model with an understanding that we have clients that have a higher velocity of need and a slightly slower velocity of need. But it doesn't change what we do. We just apply a different speed that matches with what our clients want. So this is what actually comes out. And again, I apologize for the small. I just want you to understand the macro of this and how it's not legible. But what we then go do with those quarterly plannings and annual plannings, we want to map out the next 12 months, next 24 months, next 36 months, anywhere from monthly to quarterly to annually, to where we're laying out those things that have to get done. So in this model here, you're going to see things like projects that we intended to do. We have a very specific business outcome driven event that we have to do, whether it might be equipment replacements, which are pretty typical, change management. We have new solutions implementation based on business need, quality improvement. And then we'll have a repeat cycle of those things. So we're mapping that out, because what ends up happening is that gives business a better budget to understand when they're going to have to execute things. And then once business understands that, they can apply the business logic to whether that is practical. And so in many cases, you'll find that where we would prescribe something based on a normal cadence, the cadence gets adjusted slightly. But it allows us as IT to align expectations. So if we were gearing up to execute a project for someone at a set time that wasn't when they really were ready to do it, then they aren't ready, we're not ready, and they may want to do it later when we're not ready, but they're ready. And so this lets us map that out. And then we apply a lot of the day-to-day management. And again, I find that IT budget is one of the areas that can be just fingered in the air in a lot of cases versus laying out exactly what is it we're spending, and not just through one person or one vendor or one service, but all of them. That's your copier costs. When are those contracts up? Your carrier costs for both voice and data. Who do you have them with? Are they the best ones currently in the market? What are the rates? When are those contracts up, so we can make sure that prior to that event we do a due diligence review so that we make a decision before we're pushed into a force of hands, or in worst case scenario, an automatic renewal when we don't do that. You have other things that sometimes go into IT. You might have security, CCTV. In a lot of cases, those aren't being directly managed by IT, but they live and they act inside and around IT. And in our world, If it beeps, if it bonks, if it has a data connection, if it has a phone connection, we want to place all of that in one budget if we can, so that the outcome is better management overall from a business perspective. If we didn't do this even inside of Infinity for our own business, not only on IT, but all lines, I don't know how we would run the organization. And so we want to be just as prescriptive to all of our partners out there. It's the same kind of model you can apply whether you work with us or not. So at this point, I've gone through a lot really quickly. What I hope I've done is set ourselves up to have some questions that we can work on for the next few minutes before we wrap things up. So I'm going to look through the list here and see if there's any questions that have come along so far. There's a number of people here. I'm trying to see if there's any theme of repeat here. So okay, so here's something that's been asked. I've actually got two that are fairly interesting here. The first one is the question of, well, how do you get IT to understand business outcomes? And so first, that takes time. It takes time to spend with your team in IT to help them really understand business, especially if they haven't had a history of being responsible or involved in that. And so first, the question is, do they have the right aptitude and skills in place, or do you need to spend some time training them on things like, what does it mean to budget? What does it mean to manage, to plan? But if you've got those people, then it's really about sitting down and having them understand like where we're trying to get, right? We're not trying to be too big. So again, this might be a whale. We're trying to eat one bite at a time, but this is sitting IT down and explaining to them what you really want them focused on. What are their core roles? Don't make it about keeping the computers up. Make it about making end-user satisfaction. And then that's moving them one step towards understanding business. So you want to start with that, first step, baby steps. But I'll tell you, many IT people are qualified and capable of having a business conversation if you'll just have it with them. It does take time and energy. It's not something you do overnight. You may spend a quarter, 6 months, or a year really bringing IT into the fold. But to begin with, bring them into the room. You'll be surprised what they'll contribute once you just get them in the normal cycle of business conversation. Now, the flip side of that is the conversation that says, okay, how do I get business to include IT in the discussion and direction? And that's sort of there's the IT side of the business side of the conversation. So IT wants to know, how do we get business to get us involved? And so the business is a lot of times unaware that IT wants to contribute. So I would tell any IT team that's in place to go ahead and make an overture to someone, your CFO, your finance manager, if not the CEO or president, the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, and go to lunch and have a conversation about what's business doing. Now, it's going to feel weird for them that you're asking that, and explain to them your real goal is to elevate what you're doing for them from just fixing the computers when they're broken to then mapping out how IT supports business. So let's see, what are some other questions here? So I see a couple. I've got a couple more I want to make sure I definitely address. One I want to address here is, what do you do when the plan doesn't achieve the stated outcomes? So that can be tough. I mean, that's an evaluation point. Business and IT needs to sit down and say, hey, did we have an over expectation? Did we have a failure to deliver? Did we have a miscommunication? And then is there an adjustment to be made to get us back to success? Or whether we are accepting the current outcome and making a new plan based on what we've learned. We at Infinity know that nothing's perfect. We either succeed or learn. We never fail. And so that end understanding of sitting down and saying, and especially if you can do it in the steps, like in the process, I'd rather fail or catch early a shortcoming so we can make a further adjustment down the road versus getting to the end. And that's why it's not just, here's the end state, let's go get there. Let's sail to the new world. We want to understand what it takes to get there. What is it we're going to do today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year to move forward? And so you want to measure those early. But when things fail, you've got to have an honest conversation among a successful group of adults that are very confident and very invested in what's going on. And then you want to actually understand that measurement. And then you want to make those adjustments. Again, sometimes it's just simple, safe adjustments. Okay, so another question that's come here, and I was actually going to get to this one at the end, but someone's going to let me get to the end before the end, so I'll go ahead and say it. Someone's asked, well, how do we get Infinity to do one of those roadmaps for me? So first, what I'd say is the person who asked the question, unfortunately, I can't see your name. I would ask you to, you want to type your name and your email address and the fact that you want one in the chat box. It's as simple as letting us set up a time to talk to you. We can provide all of our concepts and tools to you in a conversation that you can look at and decide if that's something you can take on yourself, or if you've actually got a desire to have us implement one. Those business plans and those roadmaps are part of our iSupport plan. That's where we are working with the team. We have joined IT operation in part or in total, but we could definitely, one of our always values is educate first and invest first. And so the easiest thing is let us know who you are. Let us know you want to have us contact you. The chat's only showing to us in this sense. You're not broadcasting your information to everybody, but type it in the chat, name, email address, please contact me. I'll have Cal Till reach out to you and establish a time for one of our senior consultants and him to come by, further this conversation along, and then doing that, we'll end up with you making a decision about whether those tools are ones you can go run with or ones that you want us to help you continue that process with. And again, that gets into the prescription around our iSecure, iSupport, iComply programs that allow us to invest the time to assess, design, deploy, support, and give you those roadmaps. And I'll tell you, a roadmap's not a point-in-time document. A lot of times people think an assessment's the only thing you need. I just need somebody to come do an assessment, and that's all I need, and then I can go run with it. But it's an ongoing, living and breathing set of documents and processes. You have to refresh them frequently. So whoever is going to take those on, us or otherwise, that's why you need a cycle of quarterly planning, quarterly review, annual planning, annual review, retest, reassess. It's never done. This is just like any other part of business. We continue to work forward with those things. So I don't see any more questions here. I appreciate, again, that I'm always interested when you have IT and business having those same desired outcome from different sides and different perspectives, which tells me that we ultimately need to communicate more, communicate better. We need business and IT working together more than we have them. When IT wants to get invested and business wants to figure out how to get them invested, that's the start of a conversation. That's the start of a great work set together. And so what are your next steps? Again, we never educate without helping you have what you need. So if you'd like to set up a time with one of our senior consultants, please feel free to email ctil@infinitynetworks.net or call 478-803-7123, which will reach Cal. He will help set up a time to come out and spend an hour with you and have that conversation around how do we do a roadmap, really getting a little bit more of a detail with you about what this looks like. And then really from there, you're in the power seat. You're making the decision about whether you can take that and run with it and improve your business, which is a great thing for you, or whether you need us to come alongside of you and help, which quite frankly is what we have done for many clients and want to continue to do it for many new clients. And so we'd love the opportunity to help you. And then if you're interested, we also, again, keeping everything out in front of everyone, we want to come alongside of you to spend more time. So with that, what I will tell you is we're going to continue to do webinars this year for you. They will be recorded. We will get those up and make sure you can come back to these broadcasts. I hope they're useful. If you also have any ideas about other topics you'd be interested in hearing, feel free to email Cal. He's taking the charge of helping us make sure we bring the right content. And he's also making up the charge of, looking at what's next. And so please visit businessroadmap.net. That's the website where we have all the webinars. Our next one is March 15th. And this one will be how employee risk in a modern office affects business. And so we're looking at the idea of employees and whether they're educated and capable of executing within a business. And even in that execution, what are the things that the end users can do that put us at a higher risk? And what can we do to reduce that risk? So again, our next webinar, it's on the Business Roadmap website. Feel free to go sign up there. We obviously want you to register. It's March 15th at 10 a.m. We're going to try to keep these consistent for you, try to run through these every few months. We're going to try to program in more as asked for and needed. But our goal is to educate you through a lot of the tricky things. And quite frankly, some of the cool things that are happening this year. We're going to have a high security focus. We're going to have a high operational focus. We believe that the most power that we can deliver is helping connect that future state of business, where you're wanting to go, and with IT. Watering and feeding is important, but forward movement is what makes business better. And with that, we'll close out our webinar for the day. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. I hope there was value. I hope to see you not only virtually again in the future, but live within our communities. If I can ever be of service to you, any of our team can ever be of service, please give us a call, send us an email, and we thank you very much.